Ancient Mesopotamia, which means land between two rivers in Arabic, was located in modern-day Iraq, northeastern Syria, southeastern Turkey, and southwestern Iran.
Specialization, also known as division of labor, is the act of specializing. Specialize means to pursue some special line of study, work, etc., have a speciality.
It is widely agreed that the Mesopotamian civilization grew to be the first urban civilization, in the sense that people were living in an organized society. The discovery of the great city Persepolis is a strong evidence for this. There were many more foundings like cities, tablets, carvings, which set the life of the people. It also set a new standard of living. Now there are known to be 8 main elements of a civilization. One of the most important elements which helped build the Mesopotamian civilization was job specialization. It meant that a person could choose and specialize in a certain field and then put his expertise to maximum use in that field. Some of these jobs included hunting, gathering, weaving, baking, scribes, teaching, etc. But the most popular was pottery. Clay pots were an integral part of this civilization as it had a number of important uses, such as transporting and storing water, cooking, etc. Earlier, they used to use their own hands to mold and smoothen the pots, but later, as they advanced, they invented a much easier and faster way to make pots, called the potter's wheel. Its origin was in Europe. It was more convenient to shape the clay into symmetrical forms with this potter's wheel, and this helped to increase their speed and their clay movement. And now let's move on to another common job, which was weaving. It was a specialized job which involved working with a loomer. A loomer is a large rock with a hole in the center and a cloth tied to it. Archaeologists have also found many artifacts which show that weaving was prominent at that time. Writing and education in ancient Mesopotamia was considered very important but expensive. The poor people couldn't afford it. Thus, mainly boys from rich families were sent to school. Oh, and speaking of schools, being a teacher was also very important and intellectual job. The teachers were supposed to teach the pupils 1,800 characters, which then enabled them to do cuneiform writing. Many children grew up to become scribes. Scribes were the people who were supposed to engrave records and make useful inscriptions. Today, there are many museums over the world which exhibit various preserved inscriptions and engravings which belong to ancient Mesopotamia. The political system of Mesopotamia was monarchy. Thus, the highest and most respected job was that of the kings and queens. They supervised the smooth running of the city, both socially and economically.
In general, a lot of things were developed, so nowadays we have better techniques, knowledge, and variations of jobs in the modern world. As an example of high-class people, there are doctors. The doctors differ greatly in the modern world compared to the ancient Mesopotamia. There are around 50 to 60 kinds of doctors existing. Out of those, some new types are gastrologists, doctors who deal with digestive system problems, optometrists, eye doctors, and oncologists, cancer doctors. By this we can see that knowledge also widens. Techniques in the subject were also developed. For instance, in ancient Mesopotamia, while doing surgeries, they would just cut open the body without anesthetizing the patient. But nowadays, they have the skills to anesthetize the patient with drugs so that he or she does not feel a pain. Also, it is harder to become a doctor in the modern world than to become one in the ancient Mesopotamia. But later, you will get a higher salary. Farmers nowadays grow all variations of crops, vegetables, fruits, and so on. They now use machines to cut the crops, peel them, and everything else that would have been done by hand in the ancient Mesopotamia. Nowadays, servants do not occur anymore greatly, but they have changed into many different kinds of jobs, such as housemaids, cooks, butlers, and many more.
Scholars get most of their information about doctors from cuneiform tablets. The largest surviving medical treatise from ancient Mesopotamia is the Treatise of Medical Diagnosis and Prognosis. It consists of 40 cuneiform tablets and dates back to about 1600 BC. It is an accumulation of knowledge throughout all of Mesopotamia and covers many subjects such as convulsive disorders, gynecology, and pediatrics. Some of the treatments stated are still used today. Each spirit was held accountable for a disease that occurs in a specific part of the body. So for example, Hand of God X was for a stomach disease. Often, people with diseases gave offerings to the god of that body part. There were two specific types of doctors, Ashapu, or sorcerer, and Asu, physician. The Ashapu diagnosed or gave a prognosis of the disease and often decided which god or ghost was at the root of the disease. The Ashapu, the Su, treated illnesses that were more physical, example, wounds. Due to the Hammurabi Code, medicine could be a very dangerous job for the doctors. In the Hammurabi, it states that if while doing a surgery, a patient of high class died, the doctor would have to have his hand cut off. But if a slave died, on the other hand, he would only have to pay to have the slave replaced. Although some treatments used by the ancient Mesopotamians are still used to this day, other civilizations such as the Egyptians had more of an influence over medicine of civilizations to come. In ancient Mesopotamia, during the period between 10,000 and 6,000 BC, people's lives were changed hugely by this concept of domesticating animals. It was not only the domestication of animals that had a big impact on agriculture, there was also the change from hunting and gathering to planting and herding. There was enough precipitation for the farmers of ancient Mesopotamia to grow crops and keep livestock. They grew crops such as wheat, barley, and other wild edible plants, and herded animals such as sheep, cattle, goats, and pigs. In 5800 BC, people were living in the Tigris-Euphrates region, which became known as the Fertile Crescent. It was known as this because it was extraordinarily fertile. When the rivers flooded, it left behind its soil rich in nutrients, which was magnificent for the region on an agricultural aspect. However, the rivers were very unpredictable and caused the destruction of many homes. Often, the rivers would not flood for months. Over time, though, the Mesopotamians developed irrigational systems which solved this problem. In Mesopotamia, having slaves or servants was quite acceptable. People that were captured in battle were often used as slaves and made up a great percentage of the slave community. The development of slaves came hand in hand with the development of agriculture from about 10,000 BC. Only a minority of slaves could be utilized by nomads, and they were often found it hard to keep control over the slaves. Often, criminals who failed to pay their debt were forced into slavery, but mainly prisoners of war became slaves. The Babylonian law code, called the Hammurabi Code, was very harsh on slaves. Slaves were treated very unjustly and unequally in comparison to the people of high class. In Mesopotamia, however, slaves did have more rights than a lot of other civilizations. For example, they were able to own their own property and marry freely.